I'm here with Steve Mello from IBM to talk about what Watson is doing in retail. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Darius. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for giving me the time. Can you tell us what IBM Watson is doing for retail, please?
Sure. Let me first just talk about what IBM Watson is. It is a branded cognitive capability built by and brought to market by IBM. So it is our introduction into the cognitive world. And what Watson can really do is it can assist retailers in a number of ways. As you start to see where the market is really having to consume unbelievable amounts of data, having to become increasingly personalized, and retailers have to do all of this in real time, it's becoming challenging, if not impossible, for humans to do this. So what Watson really allows you to do is to evaluate all of that data and to decide what an action is, or to recommend an action to the user that really does allow you to deliver on that personalization and real-time type of capability. That's a general idea of what it can do.
Okay, so that's the million-dollar question these days, and really in the future for retailers, is to making sense of all this humongous amounts of data that we're capturing. And of course, with the IoT and different wearable devices or mobile like beacon type information, all of these things are going to be captured, and then what do you do? So how does Watson actually make sense of this information?
Mm-hmm. Watson works just like a human brain. It just does so much more quickly. So for us, cognitive has to have 4 key capabilities. It needs to be able to learn. It needs to be able to apply that learning in a real situation. It doesn't learn just for learning's sake. It needs to continue to learn, just like human beings. As you get older and as you learn more, your viewpoints on a certain situation may change. And you need to be able to communicate, and Watson needs to be able to communicate in a manner that is appropriate for whatever it's communicating with. And
that's fine. Okay. So how does it actually work? Because we see a lot of products that are provided in the cloud. Is Watson also cloud-based, or is it the premises? What's the actual implementation entail?
Sure, Watson is cloud-based, but what we'll do, for instance, in our e-commerce and merchandising offerings, is we will call out to one of the tens of APIs that Watson provides to pull into our applications what it is we're looking for. So it may be the ability to assess weather information, or it may be the ability to assess tone in a certain piece of content. But there's, like I said, there's tens of APIs that people can use and pull into their app, use to pull information and cognitive capability into their applications.
Okay, so what are some of the, e-commerce platforms? Is Watson connected to any of the major e-commerce platforms? I'm sure IBM's own platform is one.
Sure. Last fall, right around this time, we introduced a new offering called Commerce Insights. And that really is, for us, what we want to be the front end for anybody in the e-merchandising type of area, or an online merchandiser. And what you can do with Commerce Insights is that information all starts to come together in one place, allows the user to have analytics done and insights generated, and then to take action in that same environment. So it's end-to-end, insights to action, very simple for the user. And what we've done is we've started to incorporate Watson into that capability. So for instance, you can use natural language processing to better understand why a certain product or category happens to be performing above or below plan.
Okay, so explain to me how that would actually work. I am a retailer, a member of the marketing team at a retailer, and how do I actually use natural NLP to get that information? Maybe do a scenario for me.
For instance, you could actually query about if there was a product you were launching this fall, and you thought it was going to do particularly well around millennial women, and you looked after 4 to 6 weeks and realized that the results were well below plan. You could, through natural language processing, have Watson cull through all of your web data and start to find out maybe where it is doing well and as planned versus where it isn't. So for instance, if you found out that in fact it's doing very well in South Carolina, and you're trying to figure out what is it about South Carolina, or what was done in South Carolina that maybe I can replicate in other places. And when you start to understand now, okay, I understand now it's working well in South Carolina, I understand why, I can start to apply that learning to the rest of the country. And maybe you decide you want to run an online promotion. But Watson can help you cull through all that data to understand where it is working well, where it isn't working well, and that can help then to guide you into some insights and some actions.
Okay, so I guess I heard NLP, and I was automatically or maybe incorrectly thinking voice, sort of like Alexa, saying, Alexa, find me all the customers that have purchased this sweater, and where are they located? Is that the type of thing, or no?
At this point, you can type, and it has type ahead, and you can put your questions in that way. So it's not voice automated.
When are we going to have the voice?
We're still talking about that and working on that.
Voices are still discussing that. So that would be amazing for marketers. So you don't have to type anything in. So who are some of the customers that are any customers using this right now?
Right now we have a number of customers who are implementing our WebSphere Commerce version 8 offering, and that's what Commerce Insights comes with, and that's where you can access the Watson capabilities as I talked about. And in the future we're looking to open that up to a broader set of e-commerce platforms, both within our own franchise as well as other e-commerce platforms.
So is the actual implementation of this on top of WebSphere Commerce, how long does it take? What's the additional, what does the retailer need to do? They don't need to get any hardware, of course.
No, this is all driven at this point primarily through web analytics. So whether it's our own web analytics offering or competitive web analytics offerings, it can ingest data from those platforms. It is widget driven. So if you and I are both using it and you want to bring in certain pieces of information into your Insights platform, and I want to bring in slightly different pieces of information, we can drag and drop widgets in to configure our own dashboards, if you will. We can then leverage the Watson capabilities as we talked about to the extent that you pull in widgets that utilize those. And then it's pretty easy to get going from a Commerce Insights perspective. It's very graphical, very modern in its look and feel. And as I said, very easy, one, to drill down, but also the important part is that you can, once you have those insights, you can take action in the same environment. You're not having to go out to another tool. We're seamlessly integrating the Commerce Insights tool and the Commerce tool in a way that when you want to, for instance, implement that promotion, you're not leaving that environment, that Insights environment. It's very seamless and very easy.
Right. So if I was to ask you about the major advantage that I mean, because there are other companies that have similar type of offerings. I mean, the names at least sound similar. What is the main advantage of actually working with Watson?
I think we really do have something unique at this point. There really isn't a lot of cognitive capability out there. We are on the cutting edge of it. So for instance, as we move forward, some of the new capability you'll see us coming out within the next couple months, we'll use cognitive to help intelligently sequence products on a web page. So if it detects that if a system detects that a product isn't performing as planned, or there's some issue going on with the product, it may decide to move that product further down on the page. Or if you're not comfortable with the machine taking all the action on its own, it could give the merchandiser the advice that perhaps it should move the product further down the page. And then when the situation's rectified, it'll restore that product back up to its original position or wherever you'd like to put it on the page. We're also going to be using cognitive for what we call anomaly detection. So the system will go out and look, and it'll see if something unusual is happening. Maybe sales have really dropped off in a certain part of the country, and it can understand that, and it can understand and learn that that's because of a certain weather event that happened that kept people from really buying, going out to stores and buying, or somehow affected something that's going on online. And it can then make a recommendation. Perhaps it'll say you should run a promotion on this product. Or maybe it understands the weather has dropped, the temperature has dropped dramatically, and it says maybe you should start to promote fall gear a month earlier than you really were planning to do it. So looking for these little oddities or these little anomalies in business and helping to give that merchandiser a quick heads up on it and allowing them to take the action quickly before anybody else does. Again, because they can only go through so much data as a human being.
Right.
And the system, while the brain is not necessarily smarter than human beings, it can just process that much faster. So we can go through all this data when we're sleeping or when we're in meetings or just is too much for anyone to consume and provide these insights that, as I mentioned, the system can then either action on its own, or it can give the user some recommendations and let the user then take the actions.
Okay, so the concept of cognitive, I want to talk about that a little bit. You know, I mean, we hear a lot about AI these days. Anybody with any kind of like analytic processing, they're calling themselves an AI software, which, you know, for people that don't know, they could probably believe that. But for me, AI is a lot more than just being able to go through data. So how does that relate to the cognitive abilities that you're mentioning?
It goes back to what I said earlier. We have a 4-part definition for what's cognitive. So it has to be able to learn, but it has to be able to apply that learning. Just having knowledge in the cognitive brain isn't enough. If it can't apply that to a business situation and do it in some of the ways that I've given examples around, then it's not cognitive. And then importantly, it has to continue to learn, because as I mentioned, even when you compare this back to human beings, what you think or how you evaluate a situation when you're 9 years old may be very different than how you evaluate it when you're 29 years old. The cognitive system here has to do the same sort of thing, just much more quickly. So for instance, a decision that it makes this week may be different than a decision it would make in a week or two, because it's learned in that week or two's time frame and decided that what I thought was good 2 weeks ago, there may be an even better answer now. So you need to be able to learn, apply the learning, and continue to learn to really truly be cognitive in our minds.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely, there is actually a rule, I forget what the name of the gentleman was that came up with a set of requirements for calling something an AI software, I forget the name, but that definitely makes a lot more sense. So what's the future? What's in the next year or two, what can we expect from Watson?
Yeah, we'll continue to build more in to the capabilities. As I mentioned, ideas like intelligent sequencing and anomaly detection are important for us. The ability to bring in weather. We know how much weather can affect retailing. It can keep people out of the stores, which can affect a store, but it can also, as a result, drive more people to the web because they can't go to the store. And we want to know that. We want to know how weather's going to affect inventory and how we need to shift inventory as well. You'll see us talking about cognitive, for instance, when we discuss content and how it can affect and help us to tag content so people don't have to spend so much time tagging content, but the system can automatically tag it and then learn over time if it should eliminate some tags or add other tags that didn't initially provide the offering based on how the users are actually using that content. So there's really a long list of areas that we can apply Watson cognitive to. Even again on the content side, using tone, as I mentioned quickly earlier.
That's fascinating, by the way, to be able to detect tone.
Yeah, to be able to understand tone and copy, or to understand sentiment and what's being communicated through a certain visual, and determine if I'm a merchandiser and I know what I want to achieve or who I'm trying to reach and kind of know something about them, and want to map up that knowledge with the best image or the best copy or the best video, the ability for Watson capabilities to analyze that creative, that copy or visual or video can be very helpful in culling through tons of content options to get down to the one or two that really makes the most sense for the individual that I'm going after, or the small segment that I'm really going after with a particular campaign or product effort.
Right. Well, this is very interesting. So you have a booth here at shop.org.
We do, absolutely. It's booth 5001, and we invite everybody to stop by, without a doubt. You can see everything I've talked about here really on display, as well as much more, what we're doing in the fulfillment area, what we're doing in stores, and how we're actually trying to better link online and the stores to create a true omni-channel experience for users. Things like being able to not only place an order online and pick it up in store, which we led that several years ago, but now also being able to have a store associate track a customer's order no matter where that order is placed from, or take the returns no matter where it's placed from, being able to line bust, being able to bring clienteling capabilities into store associates' hands, and greater knowledge so they can just keep up with very well-informed consumers who are increasingly using their cell phones in the store to gain information. So yeah, definitely come by the booth and check everything out and see all the great stuff we have to offer. There's a lot of really cutting-edge capability, a lot of it around cognitive, and some that's not cognitive but equally as cool.
Great, thank you very much, Steve, and look forward to meeting you over at the booth soon.
Great, thank you.